The Jaguars defeated the Saints 31-24. I apologize for the late upload. I really appreciate everybody's patience with the rankings this week and this late upload. I had a really nasty stomach illness, so thank you very much. It's just been hard to sit still for prolonged periods of time this week. Trevor Lawrence, 20-29, 204 yards, a touchdown, no pick. He almost didn't play this game because of a knee injury, so this is really solid stuff, and he guided his team to a win. But the problem is the touchdowns still aren't there. The yards still aren't there. Frustrating stuff from a fantasy perspective, but at least he was out there getting his team a win. So good stuff there. And he added some yards on the ground too. 8 carries, 59 yards for him. Really good stuff. He was the team's leading rusher. Travis Etienne was phenomenal. 14 carries, 53 yards. The 2 touchdowns is the phenomenal part. 3.8 isn't that great, but the Saints have a really good defense against running backs, so I think that was mostly to blame there. But still, Etienne has been an absolute steal. Even though he was drafted fairly high, he's one of the few workhorse running backs in the league right now. One of the main reasons that he was my fantasy ride or die this year to rip off Matthew Berry was because of this extraordinary talent. And Tank Bigsby, that's the difference between Tank Bigsby and Travis Etienne. Travis Etienne was one of the greatest running backs in college football history. Tank Bigsby was splitting carries at Auburn. The talent margin is just so wide. I just never really understood why Tank Bigsby was getting the love. 2 carries, 2 yards here today. My prevailing theory right now on Tank Bigsby love preseason is that I think there are fantasy analysts out there who just don't know how to watch tape, and they see that this guy has a funny name. They're like, oh, I could see that name being popular one day. And they see that Travis Etienne is skinny and he's had sort of a slow start because of injuries. So they go, oh, funny name, plug him in. He's bigger too. He's going to get touchdowns. But no, that's not what has happened at all. And, I don't say that I do say it to make myself sound good. But at the same time, I try to point out flaws in what I said preseason as well. But to me, this was just clear as day. Travis Etienne is an extraordinary talent, one of the most talented running backs in the league. Calvin Ridley, 1 carry, 0 yards, and Jamal Agnew had a carry for -1. Christian Kirk. So it's interesting with the Jaguars. If Zay Jones plays, play Calvin Ridley. If Zay Jones is out, play Christian Kirk. Kirk had 6 catches, 90 yards, and a touchdown. He was the leading receiver for the Jags today. Really awesome stuff for him. He is like I said earlier, a must start if Zay Jones is out. Evan Engram continuing this really consistent output. 5 catches, 45 yards, 9.5 fantasy points is solid for a tight end. We'll take that. He's always given us around 10 fantasy points every week. So if you're not really in the game of, these George Kittle type players who are going to be super up and down and might have more upside, Evan Engram might be more your speed because he's putting out consistent fantasy points that a lot of tight ends aren't even reaching. So really good stuff there. Jamal Agnew, 4 catches, 36 yards. Travis Etienne also adding 3 catches for 24 yards. Tim Jones had 2 catches for 17. And Calvin Ridley, really disappointing stuff here. 1 catch, 5 yards, 4 targets. Like I said earlier, only play him if Zay Jones is in. I think that's because Zay Jones, provides another element on the outside that teams have to defend. When he's not in there, teams can just hone in on Ridley on the outside, and, Kirk can eat. But there are other plays I've been watching where Calvin Ridley's open and he just hasn't been getting the ball. It's just not his season. Here's to hoping that Zay Jones comes back soon because this has been really rough to see. For the Saints, their offense looks pretty stagnant right now. Derek Carr had a ton of volume, but not a ton of output. 33 of 55, 301 yard, a touchdown, an interception. It just does not look good for the Saints. It's really weird that they don't play Jameis Winston either because they've had so many options to do it. Like, they got off to a really slow start in this one. Derek Carr was not doing it at all. And, they had that game where Derek Carr had the bum shoulder, only threw for like 120 yards, and they still didn't pull him. Jameis Winston was a captain for them not too long ago, so I just wonder what's going on there. Alvin Kamara, 17 carries, 62 yards. He has just been phenomenal for fantasy so far. Taysom Hill, also another really solid tight end option. Another one of those guys who's crazy up and down like George Kittle, but Taysom Hill can get it done. 5 carries, 18 yards, and a rushing touchdown is good stuff, especially for someone you can put at your tight end spot. Derek Carr, just the 3 carries for 14 yards. Jamal Williams had 5 carries for 14. And Rashid Shaheed had 1 carry for 4. So if you have Kendre Miller, I think he's a pretty safe drop. with Jamal Williams getting all the carries in this one. Alvin Kamara, 12 catches, 91 yards, 14 targets. His receiving production lately has just been insane. So he was suspended for the first 3 weeks of the season, and he only has 9 less targets than Calvin Ridley does in the entire year. So really great stuff from Alvin Kamara so far. His receiving value alone has really risen him up the charts as far as fantasy running backs this year. Chris Olave, he's quietly one of the most consistent producers in fantasy. 7 catches for 57 yards and no touchdowns isn't great, but at least we see the 15 targets there. That lets us know that the potential for production is still there. Keep playing him every single week. Taysom Hill adding to that rushing touchdown, 4 catches for 50 yards, just a really solid day for him. Michael Thomas, still getting us some Michael Thomas numbers. 3 catches, 42 yards, and a touchdown. That's about 13 points. That's around high-end Michael Thomas stuff. He's another guy, like Evan Engram. 10 points every single week. Lock it in. 13 points on the high side. Foster Moreau, he had an ugly drop at the end of the game, but 3 catches, 33 yards on 4 targets for him. And Rashid Shaheed, he's another one of those guys crazy up and down because of his deep threat role. Just the 4 catches for 28 yards on 8 targets for him. It just depends what your roster looks like, but generally I would say he's a drop, but I can understand keeping him as well. That'll do it for me, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, follow @WeAreDrafting on Instagram, and I will see you later.